It's satire, you fucking imbeciles.
Terrible people.
Have some fucking class. David's mic, Mark, check, suck.
You know that's exactly the first place they go.
Oh,
They
yeah.
go to appearance.
We need to get these fuckers out of here.
We're like, look at him with their red tie.
Look at their white privilege.
But he's wearing all blue. Don't you think he might be trying to say something? No, he's red tie.
It's not even in the shot, Dane.
Dane's camera, take 1. No red eyes.
Dane, this is a somber day on the Weapons of Meme Destruction podcast. Can we start it off with a few moments of silence? Well, we're gathered here today for the repose of the soul of Brian Stelter. Dane, would you like to say a few words on his behalf, please?
Yes. Good morning from Brooklyn. Empire state of mind is in my ears. Concrete jungle where dreams are made of.
I can hear it now.
Heading into the office for the final show now. Written by one Brian Stelter at 7:44 a.m. August 21st, 2022.
It's a sad day in American history.
It is.
Almost as sad as January 6th.
It's a very sad day for this podcast and the comedic material that Mr. Seltzer always provided.
So many bright moments.
The podcast universe.
So many bright moments of indignant unawareness about your own flaws and shortcomings. It made us all feel at home whenever we tuned into whatever the fuck his show is called.
Yes.
And he'll be truly missed. And I'm sure he'll be on the E channel sometime soon. Anyway, Dane, would you like to break the somberness and tell these nice viewers what we are going to be covering today?
Yes. In remembrance of Brian Seltzer and the loss of reliable spaces from the great and noble and loyal and always truthful and honest CNN, we are sorry, Mr. Seltzer and your family. Anyway, on today's episode 109 of WMD Podcast, in the Culture Corner, we're talking about Zuckerberg. See, we're messing up Stelter's name, and now I'm messing up other names.
Well, he's calmed a lot of stomachs over the years, so you got to give him the credit.
Okay. Zuckerberg admits, in no uncertain terms, to FBI coercion placed on them to censor information, or at least information flow about the Biden laptop. And then in Epstein did not kill himself this week for the how many weeks in a row, David?
The 109th.
We are talking Biden's student loan forgiveness, and we have thoughts. And finally, to close out the episode, we're talking T.D.S, Trump Derangement Syndrome. You've heard us reference this a couple times on the podcast. Well, we may have the number one contender for most virulent form of TDS to date. And we're going to discuss that in the main part of the show. But, David, are we ready to do right by the memory of Brian Seltzer and provide truth, honesty, and integrity every single episode?
And obesity.
Most importantly.
That's the dumbest fucking name ever. Stelter. What, I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway, yes, we can jump in. Let's jump in.
Are we ready to jump in?
Yes, we can break. Yeah, I think I can carry on.
Welcome to Weapons of Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 109, which can be found at wmdpodcast.com/109. You can find it on any podcast catcher. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. You can get the videos on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey, and you can link up with us on all our other socials, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram.
That was a pretty good flow.
Was that a good one?
That was a good one. Not your best, but it was pretty good.
All right.
You know what?
As long,
it wasn't B-side. It was definitely A-side.
All right. As long as one foot's going in front of the other.
There you go.
So on today's episode in the Culture Corner, we're talking about basically what, as they say, what is a conspiracy theorist? What do they call a conspiracy theorist these days? Just a spoiler alert.
Yeah.
We have Zuckerberg essentially confirming what many people thought,
in
that
no uncertain terms,
maybe the government, maybe specifically through the FBI,
maybe just maybe,
you may have heard about them recently in the news once or twice, in no uncertain terms, basically giving a subtle nudge to the social media companies to say, we don't want this story going around.
Because as you know, government agencies always subtly nudge.
Of course. So Zuckerberg went on Joe Rogan recently, credit to him for that at least, and had this to say about censorship of the Biden laptop story.
How do you guys handle things when they're a big news item that's controversial? Like there was a lot of attention on Twitter during the election because of the Hunter Biden laptop story. The New York Post.
Had that too.
Yeah, so you guys censored that as well?
So we took a different path than Twitter. Basically the background here is the FBI, I think, basically came to us, some folks on our team. It was like, hey, just so you know, like you should be on high alert. We thought that there was a lot of Russian propaganda in the 2016 election. We have it on notice that basically there's about to be some kind of dump of that's similar to that. So just be vigilant. So our protocol is different from Twitter's. What Twitter did is they said you can't share this at all. We didn't do that. What we do is we have, if something is reported to us as potentially misinformation, important misinformation, we also have this third-party fact-checking program because we don't want to be deciding what's true and false. And for I think it was 5 or 7 days when it was basically being determined whether it was false, the distribution on Facebook was decreased, but people were still allowed to share it. So you could still share it, you could still consume it.
So when you say the distribution is decreased,
it got shared.
How does that work?
It basically, the ranking in newsfeed was a little bit less. So fewer people saw it than would have otherwise. So it definitely...
By what percentage?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's meaningful. But basically, a lot of people were still able to share it. We got a lot of complaints that was the case. Obviously this is
a lot of them.
Hyper political issue. So depending on what side of the political spectrum, you either think we didn't censor it enough or censored it way too much. But we weren't sort of as black and white about it as Twitter. We just kind of thought, hey, look, if the FBI, which I still view as a legitimate institution in this country, it's like very professional law enforcement. If they come to us and tell us that we need to be on guard about something, then I want to take that seriously.
Did they specifically say you need to be on guard about that story?
No, I don't remember if it was that specifically, but it basically fit the pattern.
Wow.
Don't know if it was that specifically, but it basically fit the pattern.
WMD listener, what do you think about in between the line reading in that 2.5 minute rant? I mean, just a couple things I pulled out of it. So one of their arguments, the FBI came to them in 2020 and said, we had some suspicions about the Russians in 2016. Were you guys under a rock for all 4 of those years? Did you watch any of the hearings and the fact that they didn't pin any of that stuff and it originated from the Clinton campaign and it was all a false narrative created by the political left at the time? You didn't hear any of that when they said in 2020 because we heard some stuff in 2016. Your alarm bells didn't go off immediately on that alone. Unless you have a political bias.
Well, it's just interesting that the Federal fucking Bureau of Investigation gives a fuck about whatever is circulating on a social media website.
Yeah, they don't.
Why should they?
spy on us or
Why would they even care what the commoner is doing? It's not like, unless it's, terroristic kind of things that they're trying to stop a super global terroristic plot to put a Manchurian candidate into something. And of course, I'm referring to Donald Trump and definitely not Joe Biden, because Donald Trump is the Russian Manchurian candidate and definitely not Russia. Joe Biden.
Well, I mean, but here's the other thing is like when you suggest that the FBI might have been involved or putting a thumb on the scale for one side or the other, what
is that not a threat to democracy?
What is that an immediate, basically destroyer of the paradigm of the FBI? What are we told about the FBI? It's an independent agency, not independent of the executive branch, but it's independent from the political realm. No matter who comes into power, left or right, they are standing there in the middle in defense of the American people and the Constitution and yada, 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 right? Like any federal agency. And partisanship doesn't even enter their ranks, even at the most twisted and against each other we are. But to suggest that they would, you immediately crush at that meme, that paradigm, and destroy it for them about, well, maybe this is an institution capable of capture and used as a political weapon against my opponents. You're not allowed to draw that conclusion.
Well, it's just interesting that, I mean, for all the super, super important things like raids on Mar-a-Lago, and we can go down a litany of things like radicalizing your own population and then arresting them for you radicalizing them. Saying that the KKK doesn't exist, even though they definitely did. There's a myriad of things that they've fucked up in the past. So maybe they're fucking up now. And I don't know when it has to smack you over the head for the last time for you to get like, maybe these things don't have your best interests in mind. Maybe they're just there to force their own agendas upon you. If you weren't having second thoughts about Facebook before now, I mean, all credit to Zuckerberg for going on the JRE, the biggest podcast of podcasts. But at the same time, like...
Well, not now. Meghan Markle just overtook Joe Rogan as the top podcast.
Are you fucking kidding me right now?
For real. I saw it today.
Is that really serious?
That's a real serious
You're really
thing.
coming at me?
We're going to
with
look
that?
it up
Okay.
later. I know, it's disturbing.
Everybody wants to hear what she has to say.
Of course.
She's got a lot of very...
the most nuanced opinions
opinionated
ever.
views on a lot of things. Very intelligent looking. And...
sounding and actually
the
being.
woman that got a prince to leave the royal fucking family.
David,
Anyway,
I
sorry,
did not mean to take you off
I
track.
got distracted. I just got very livid within the moment. I'm sorry. I came in after my boy Joey Rogues. I forgot my train of thought, but don't trust the FBI is what I'm basically saying. At the end of the day, don't trust any federal agency. They're from the government and they're not here to help. Is that a succinct enough thing to sum it up on?
Yeah, that's
I'm getting
funny.
hot now. I'm getting vapors.
Well, the last two things before we move on to the Epstein segment, I'm just going to rattle them off real quick. One thing Zuckerberg said in there is, third-party fact checkers are doing this, not us. That's not our role. Well, when it's well documented how many writers for these third-party fact checker sites have written highly partisan stuff in favor of Democrats and anti-Trump people for other outlets, you start to wonder about the impartiality of the fact checkers. And then finally, the last one is, he said, Joe, with his always inquisitive everyman question, says, well, like, how much did what you did versus Twitter outright banning it really impact it? And Zuckerberg's exact quote was, well, you just turned them down in the algorithm a little less. So a few less people get to see them. And then later, Joe says, well, how much of an impact did this have on the election? And Zuckerberg admits it was meaningful. So it either got turned down a little bit, highly suggestive, it didn't impact the outcome at all, or it was a meaningful impact on the outcome.
And as we
you
all
willing
know,
to let them take that gamble based on the FBI saying, hush this down? I don't.
Silicon Valley is purple, man. It's red and blue. There's nobody in the tech agency that doesn't see it that's not bipartisan. So they definitely don't have an agenda to push you one certain way or another. That's all I'm saying. Dan.
Absolutely not.
So with that being said, can we move on to the next segment?
We absolutely can. Not a ham-handed segue at all.
Ham-handed?
I know. Oh, listen.
What the fuck does that mean?
You've already figured this out, viewers and listeners. In order to play these clips throughout this episode, the computer audio is on, and that's what you just heard is an email coming in. So you might hear that. Probably should have said that at the beginning of the episode, but that's what that is.
Fucking warned you, Dave.
I know, but
Take it out and post.
we got to play the videos.
I think it was a little quiet there.
Oh.
Could have slipped it in there.
Okay. So in the Epstein did not kill himself segment, we have Biden's student loan forgiveness program.
Thank God.
And you might be wondering, Dane and David, WMD, friends,
Don't you
family,
want the children?
Romans, countrymen.
We're Roman countrymen now?
Yeah.
Centurion!
No, what isn't that what they said when they
Mount your
came into
steed!
Rome?
What's that?
They said like friends, Romans, countrymen, and then they would start their speech.
I fucking have no idea.
You don't know about this?
Well, I know friends, rodents, quadrupeds, lend me your ears. And then he pulled his butt cheeks apart and said, "Oh!" I'm
Okay.
obviously quoting Ace Ventura too.
So you memorized
Eventually.
the Ace Ventura formulation of this ancient historical thing.
Maybe. You can't prove it. But it shows where we definitely diverged in our educational system.
We have a record for eternity. Information never dies, David. This recording will live on in eternity.
You're goddamn right.
So, all right. So, Biden's student loan forgiveness program. You won't be surprised at the depravity, the depths of the depravity that the people in favor of it are going to. But you'll also never guess how much of a role Biden himself had in creating the problem in the first place.
No.
I know, right? Dude, that never
The fuck out
happens.
of here.
They
Sleepy
never happen.
Uncle Joe?
David,
If you ain't black, you ain't voting for me.
what did we say? Definitely not more than 3, but I think 1 or 2 episodes ago, we made not an original, but a completely valid quote that if you have incentive to always be the one to fix problems, and you have the capability of creating problems for you to fix, so as a pure matter of economical job security,
You'll always be employed.
what are you going to be incentivized
I know
to
exactly
do?
how to fix that problem because I created it in the first place.
Exactly.
Your Honor, I object.
So before we get to that fun historical Epstein didn't kill
Super
himself
fucking
moment, we're going to point you in the direction. Now, again, this is one person's opinion, but I can count the ratio for you on this opinion of this tweet and show you that this individual speaks for a lot of individuals in this belief system. So we have Nina Turner. She's a politician.
Any relation? Did I beat the shit out of her too?
David, I don't think you can.
Can she dance like her mama?
David, you can't joke about that. Andrew Tate just got canceled.
Oh, we'll talk about him in a little bit. If you're a fucking subscriber.
That's right. If you are. David and I are going to create a bonus content that you can get at the...
oh, shit. This is a fucking in the flow. You better catch this. You better catch it, bro. Come on, where they got to go.
At the $10 level or above level of support. $5 gets you into our private Facebook group. $10 a month gets you into get you a private code, access only on our website, wpodcast.com, and where we release bonus content periodically where only you have access to.
And all of that makes us feckless whores.
Yes. But, this thing has been in the red for quite some time. And
so anyway,
in order to keep it a going concern, we should probably think about it being a growing concern. Anyway,
Tina Turner, let's go.
Yes. So Nina Turner, a politician, I forget, some northern state like Minnesota, Illinois, Michigan, something like that. She had this to say on Twitter. Quote, canceling $10,000 in student debt when the average white borrower is $12,000 in debt, while Black women hold, on average, over $52,000, isn't just unacceptable, it's structural racism. So, this is evidence of the CRT essential philosophy, right? That racism is more than just a mean thing to one individual to another. It is structural. The entire structure of society, the institutions, the corporate leaders, the everything is designed to institute ideas of racism and make life more difficult for non-whites.
And Dane,
Essentially.
who hands down those structures for us to all work within, by the way?
Yeah, that would be the government. I mean, they're the premier institution of all institutions, which is why Nina Turner would spend so much of her political capital and time to try to control that apparatus.
Just grab it.
Yeah.
Control it.
Now, let me ask you a second, listener and viewer. Let's take Nina Turner at her word. She is so driven to save democracy, to be fair, to get the consent of the governed. And she thinks that her opposing side is basically building society against her. Let's say she does get power. What do you think she's going to do to her political opponents? You think she's not going to retaliate with the same institutions that she's complaining about being set up? Or do you think she's going to be principled and abolish them? Well, I just suggest to you, listener or viewer, what do you see as the trajectory of government over the last several decades?
Is Jon Snow
Is it growing towards more freedom?
going to stab her in the heart? And then her dragon blows apart the government? I don't think so. This isn't Game of Thrones.
No.
Right? Watch. What is it called? Of Dragons? Age of Dragons? On HBO. This Sunday at whatever time it airs. I don't fucking know. HBO, give us money. Anyway.
Be distracted from anything real going on in the world.
Exactly. Be entertained.
But yeah, so listen, even if we take Miss Turner at her own words, that's cause for concern anyway. But if we just take it at its surface level, cynical, political sloganeering to try to divide one group of the population against the other by saying, look, that guy, just because he's white, he's out to get you. And it's built into the structure.
It's fast food government. All they have to do is come up with a fucking catchy quip or some fucking really good tagline and just push it on you. Like, ba-da-ba-ba-ba. You don't even have to say the words anymore, for fuck's sake. You're so conditioned to know what the hell that means. Or, dong. Like, what are we, fucking rats in a fucking test tube that we just hear a bell and then all of a sudden we crave whatever the thing they're testing us on? Like, come on, be smarter than that shit.
Exactly. And
God damn.
And here's the thing about the real statistics on the ground that she's just ignoring. So she's saying it's a simple thing, right? White people on average have this much debt, and Black women in particular, that's odd. How all of the white borrowers are included, but then only one subset. That should indicate to you right there, like, what happened if we added in the Black men and made it holistic? Would their numbers be a little bit less in terms of their debt? Would it be more? I don't know, but I suggest to you that because she referred to whites as a whole and then referred to only a smaller subset of the Black population that she selected, it seems to me like there would be a reason for her to do that. I don't know what the numbers are. That would just immediately raise a red flag to me to look into it deeper. But the surface level, stay divided, be angry at each other, yada, yada, yada.
Can anything not be racist anymore? Or does everything have to be racist? Can I order fried chicken and not be racist? It's delicious. Can I eat a watermelon with the fried chicken? Is that racist? For Christ's sake, like what the fuck is not racist anymore? If I don't comply with your LARPing of whatever the hell you say that you are that day, I'm racist. Not maybe somebody else in the room is fucking psycho and I'm trying to make them feel as good as I can, but they just lose their shit on me. Like, where's the understanding? Where's the movement forward? Where's like the coming together? all this just seems to be driving us apart, does it not?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the intention because, again, create
Because
the
they
problem.
don't want to solve the problem.
Create the problem, I'll come in and fix it.
Right. Or perpetuate it.
But there's two completely reasonable ways to read these outcomes about the difference between all white borrowers and just black women borrowers. One is what she is suggesting, that it's structural and it's built into the system, and that's just inherently something that is basically a vestige of slavery. Or another reasonable interpretation of why those numbers would come out the way they are is one group tends to look at the economic situations in front of them and decide, maybe I'm not going to go to college because I can't afford it, or maybe I'm not going to do this, or that I'm going to forego this or that, so I don't pile debt on top of me. I'm going to go to trade school, things like that. Maybe it's just a difference in preferences. And the reason why I suggest to you that this isn't a white people make better decisions than non-white people,
You better have
which
a good
is,
point, because we might be racist if you don't.
is a soundbite that they're going to pull from this. But then explain to me why other minorities in the United States, non-whites, like Asians and Indians, and there's like kind of obscure ones, like people from a very specific country, like Sweden, tend to come over here, and no matter where you put them in the world, they're successful, that kind of thing. So other minority groups come over and outperform whites. The ones who grew up here and were enriched for generations by slavery, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
With all that
foreigners
privilege.
came over and as a culture outperformed whites to the point that they have better economic situations, not explained at all by structuralism, just explained by these minority groups made better decisions, yes, than whites, and they had better outcomes.
It's that subtle...
I suggest looking at the whole spectrum before you just dive in and say it's whites versus blacks.
It's that subtle racism of lowered expectations. You can't help yourself out of the problem that you're in, so you need us to get you out of it, which I would also call that, what's the word of the day? Racist. You're not smart enough to figure out the hole that you're in. Let us figure it out for you. You vote for us, and then we'll figure it out for you, and your life will be better.
And give us a lot of power to do it. That never seems to stop growing. But like I said...
Well, what do we know? We're just dumb podcasters, right?
That's right. But like Nina said, and like you can take or leave our interpretation. Maybe what she said to you made so much sense on the surface, it's not worth digging any deeper, and you're going to believe it. Or it's just one person's opinion. This had 9,000 likes to 1,000 comments. That's what we like to call a ratio. Out of 10,000 and some change total interactors, you had almost a 9-to-1 in favor of likes versus comment, because comments can be good comments or people like, hey, this is stupid and arguing with you. That's a good ratio. So that tells you that a lot of people, or at least in the self-selected group of followers of Nina Turner,
or bots,
they just love that kind of rhetoric, that divisive rhetoric that leaves so much out, it's not even worth consuming.
But the funny thing is that in an echo chamber of the social media world that we're apparently forced to live in now, that there's no room for rebuttal. The only rebuttal is in the comments. But then there's usually one rebuttal, and then they're usually attacked by people that agree with the post. So that's not really a fair forum. One person just got to say a bunch of shit without ever being checked on a counterpoint or anything, which is how we get people that still believe that the earth is flat. At this point, we're so down the rabbit hole of fucking conspiracy theories. I'm starting to think, you know what? Fuck it. Call me a flat earther too.
David, you said that in the last episode, and I had concerns then.
I have concerns about myself.
I'm having more concerns now.
I'm like, maybe the earth is flat. Let's go find the ice wall, bitches. Like, I don't.
Listen.
If everything that I believe in turns upside down and black is white and up is down and women are men and men are women or whatever the hell else goes on.
This is a good conversation about whether or not that's a psyop.
I would argue that this whole fucking simulation is a psyop. I wanted the blue pill.
David, that's like 5 episodes worth. Maybe that's some more bonus content, but we can't go into it on this episode.
All right. Anyway. So, she's racist.
So that's pretty
Her
much
racism is making me racist, which makes her racism.
So that's basically where the state of the conversation is about student loan forgiveness, at least for some people on the political spectrum.
Did you not have the clip of Joe Biden like turn around and go, what about the kids that didn't have her?
David, you know which clips I have. You watch you and helped me build the show notes page.
It would have been nice if we could just quote a joke. Basically, he turns around and goes, what about the girl that can't afford $10,000 for the big businesses? And the fucking shut up. That's basically what he said on the walkout.
All right. So spending a little bit of time on Nina's tweet, we have an article from The Intercept titled, Joe Biden's role in creating the student debt crisis stretches back to the 1970s.
No.
Subtitle, as Senator Joe Biden supported several bills that contributed to the rise in borrowing from $1.8 billion in 1977 to $12 billion in 1989. I mean, listen, if you hire somebody to be the CEO of your company and it goes from making 1.18 or 1.8 billion to 12 billion in the span of 12 years, you're doing good for that company.
That motherfucker is making money.
And that company, in some circles, in the power elite that have run DC for decades, that company is the federal government.
What?
It's the one that they stay in control of, they derive all the power from, and they make the decisions about your life all the way down to whether you're going to have to put crickets on it for protein.
Is that copywritten? Federal government with the little C down at the bottom right over there?
So I'm just going to read because they go into depth about the specific bills he proposed and supported and stuff like that.
Oh, no.
That link is going to be in the description of this episode or on the show notes page at
History's always been really kind to Joe Biden.
109.
History's always been really kind to Joe Biden.
But the Cliff Notes version is this paragraph right here, again, from that same article, The Intercept. Quote, early in his senatorial career, Biden played a role in making it easier for students to take out burdensome loans, spanning across several decades. Easier to strap young kids with more money. Later, his landmark bankruptcy reform legislation made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans.
Shit.
Birthing a predatory industry and sinking millions into unsustainable levels of debt. Well, isn't that exactly what the forgive all student loan debt people like Nina Turner claim the system does? And it does.
And it probably had nothing to do with the rising price of a college education. Had nothing to do with it. A federally guaranteed bill that it has to be met no matter what. You can go bankrupt, you'll still owe your student loans backed by the federal government. So now that just it gave colleges a blank check to charge whatever the fuck that they wanted for their education as long as people wanted to come there. So again, not only did they do that, did they basically make you an indentured slave to debt that you're going to get to be able to live within the fucking country that you live in. But they also gave carte blanche to all the universities that the better the university you get into, the more you're going to have to pay, the more debt you're going to get into. And that was all based on the auspices that you get out and get a job that it can pay it off quicker. But sometimes you don't. Sometimes you go to you go to a university, you don't get a job for a couple of years, and guess what?
So here's a question I would like to ask Nina Turner specifically. Let's take what you say, that it is a sign of structural racism. Now, I don't know if during the Democratic primary you were a supporter from the start of Joe Biden, or if you like a blue no matter who type person, or if like you wanted Bernie. Probably Bernie, that would make sense. Or Elizabeth Warren maybe was your second choice. I don't know who you backed in the
Indian
primary.
Elizabeth Warren?
Yes. I don't know who you backed in the primary, but it suggests to me that your principles on what created this structurally racist system, the guy who, when it definitely came down to the general election, who you wanted to definitely beat over Donald Trump because Trump was a racist and he would institute slavery in America if he was elected or reelected. That's probably what you thought about Donald Trump. and maybe not those explicit terms, but a general idea. But I'm showing you that Joe Biden created that structure. From start to finish, Joe Biden created that structure.
Why'd you go Southern?
And
right
did
there?
you support Joe Biden?
You went Southern there for a second.
No. I'm just saying, did you support Joe Biden?
Did you?
So all I'm saying is if what you say is true on the surface, that it is structural, then again, as David and I always say, actions and words. We read your words, and blue no matter who, Biden's the greatest president ever. He stopped us from Orange Man bad. That general persona.
Thank God. Things are so much better now. Anyway.
Mirrors are your friend, I guess, is what I'll finish with.
To end it on a light note, just avoid dating anybody named Ike and you'll probably have a decent living. Anyway, can we move on to the next topic before we belabor this too much?
Yes. The next topic, and listen, this is the main part of the episode. And we're talking Sam Harris. Now, many of you have probably already seen that clip, but we're going to play it in its entirety in context.
Not his podcast, not his book.
And in his words, so that you can see what we're responding to. Because if you haven't seen this is going to be very fun for you.
Fun and
very illuminating.
There you go. That's better.
Is the word of a certain thought process, and that thought process is TDS, or Trump Derangement Syndrome. This is a blind hatred of an individual so much, or fear maybe, that your entire worldview becomes so focused on that individual that you lose track of your entire moral compass. Like, you will support the most inhumane thing if it means getting one at Trump and his supporters, despite the fact that you're always say we're about equality and fairness and justice.
Even the fact that you're driving the car, you hate this person so much, you're willing to go over the back seat and start fighting like this. You stupid son of a bitch! Don't you know you fucked up how I was driving? And then you wreck the car and you're like, it was his fault. He pissed me off, god damn it.
So,
please, Dan.
With that
much ado.
With that lovely visual, we go to the venerable Sam Harris. And he is on the Trigonometry podcast earlier this week or last week, where he had some interesting things to say about the Biden laptop story. And we're just going to let Mr. Harris tell you in his words.
Dig his own hole.
And pause throughout and just point out some stuff that we think is rather interesting about his line of logic. So here's Sam Harris.
Listen, I don't care what's in Hunter Biden's life. I mean, Hunter Biden, at that point, Hunter Biden literally could have had the corpses of children in his basement. I would not have cared, right? It's like, there's nothing. First of all, it's Hunter Biden, right? It's not Joe Biden.
So right there out of the gates, it's
we can't even get 10 seconds in. He's already made a major
right there out of the
faux pas.
gates. Can't you say, or by listening to him say, oh, first of all, listen, it's Hunter Biden, it's not Joe Biden. Okay? Completely dismissive of the familial relationship between, a father and a son, that if tied in with politics in some form or fashion, even if it's just in the form of fundraising, we'll be charitable and say that's what Hunter was doing, was just fundraising for his father's campaign. Even if that was all that was going on, it's Hunter, guys. He's not the one. He's not the president. Who cares what Hunter does?
Okay.
I believe Sam would have said the exact same thing about Don Jr. No?
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
The Democrats would have been like, oh yeah, bad Don Jr. We're gonna get you so hard. We're gonna get you so hard. They were trying to get him on, like, what was the weirdest thing that they tried to get Trump on? Oh, that's right. 2 papers that he may or may not have should have had in his safe. That's their new thing. They raided an entire complex for 2 papers warranted by a Supreme Court judge, and they got nothing. But they're making it into something. And he was the Russian syndicate, despite the fact that Hunter had relationships with... I'm tired.
Are you done?
I'm tired. I'm tired of this. Please play the next clip.
Okay.
It's just like...
So
if it's a bat, I'm beating you over the head with it. They're
Yes.
just not taken.
So now, I think going through Sam's head at this point, he's thinking, okay, that's not going to convince very many people. I just said, well, it's Hunter and not Joe. Okay, I need to explain a little bit more because that's probably not going to be convincing. So let's see what his brain moved on to next.
But even if whatever scope of Joe Biden's corruption is, like if we could just go down that rabbit hole endlessly and understand that he's getting kickbacks from Hunter Biden's deals in Ukraine or wherever else, right? Or China. It is infinitesimal compared to the corruption we know Trump is involved in.
Okay. So listen, listener, I know you didn't believe me when I said it's Hunter, it's not Joe. So I'm going to give you a little bit more meat on the bone. I'm going to say, even if it was Joe, even if it is, what do they call him on the check chat? Big guy? The big guy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
the
talk
big
to
guy.
the big guy for you.
Yeah, even if it was just big guy, a suggestion on a Hunter Biden chat that he
Could
was
be
going
a
to
really large man.
talk to the big
An
guy.
obese individual.
Yeah, probably like The Rock or somebody. I don't know.
6'7". Chase Daniel. I don't know. What's his? No.
Chase Daniel's like the shortest quarterback in NFL
the
history.
The Washington Commanders or whatever the fuck they are.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I forget his name. You can't pull it out on me like that.
Shit.
That fast. Anyway,
he's a monster.
Yes.
Stay away from him.
Yes, he will end your life.
Don't hold a football around him. He'll fucking kill you.
He says, okay, listen, you're not going to, even if we go down the rabbit hole, right? He's already subtly suggesting to you, well, this is conspiracy theories anyway. Don't believe any of these Joe connections. So I'm going to go down the rabbit hole. And I believe everything in the rabbit hole. And it's proven to me that Joe Biden is corrupt and he's tied in with whatever's going on Hunter's laptop.
There is zero chance.
Who cares?
Zero chance that it's
sometimes that just happened.
Donut hole.
But I want you to listen to me. Everything Trump has done and stands for and is and blah, blah, blah is that and worse.
By the way, Dane, just to check up on current events, do we have problems with China right now?
I believe so.
Do we have problems with Ukraine, which was tied to his computer too?
Yes, we do.
And Russia, how are we doing with them that he had ties to on the computer?
Not so hot. We're in bad shape.
Interesting. Anyway, I'm not trying to draw any lines or anything. Just asking questions.
Can't do that, David. That'll get us banned. That'll get us kicked off
we're clearly a member of the MAGA tribe.
All right. So listen, Sam, at this point, he understands I might have stepped in it there. I just went from doesn't matter, it's not the big guy to who cares if it's the big guy. I am giving up a lot of ground.
Who cares if we made deals with China, Russia, and Ukraine?
I am giving up a lot of ground to your side.
That would compromise the president, the seating president right now.
I'm conceding a lot to your side to make some saving grace Hail Mary point at the end, but let's go on and see what that Hail Mary point could possibly be.
It is infinitesimal compared to the corruption we know Trump is involved in. It's like a firefly to the sun, right? I mean, like there's just it doesn't even stack up against Trump University, right? Trump University as a story is worse than anything that could be in Hunter Biden's laptop, in my view.
Okay. The difference in corruption between the two was infinitesimal. It was like a firefly to the sun. And let me tell you the size of the sun, sir. The size of the sun is Trump's scam with Trump University. Okay, concede the worst. Trump's a complete scumbag who defrauded people out of their money and gave them a fake education and gave them nothing.
And it's
terrible
everybody in
move
the world.
In every possible way. Terrible guy. Okay?
Oh my God.
That's the sun. But I just conceded to you that even if Joe Biden, if we went down the rabbit hole and saw that Joe Biden was actually involved
children's corpses
in being compromised in front of the Chinese and the Ukrainians and the Russians, all the places, all the hot spots around the world, and that being not remotely tied to his son's laptop, even if I believe that he did that, that is a firefly to the sun of Trump University.
No threat to national security whatsoever. Like again, I think we romanticize a lot of these things that we've done over the years in this country, like, Barack Obama being in league with the Taliban and all that shit. Again, it's you say shit and then people don't really take it seriously. But now we've reached the point where you say shit and people think that it could literally be real. So now we've reached the point that, just to put it succinctly, a guy starting, let's call it what it is, a business to take advantage of people. I would argue that a lot of businesses have been started that way. A business to take advantage of people's want to make themselves money is the most egregious thing possible for national security, other than being directly linked through your DNA to other countries that are not our friends right now, that would really love nothing more than to see this great nation fall to the wayside. That pales in comparison to ripping off a couple of people that thought that they could sell some multi-level product.
Or that might,
I don't know.
just a suggestion, be at least worth looking into as to whether or not they have compromising information on you of any sort, of maybe these alleged dealings.
The P-tape.
That maybe these alleged dealings that are happening through your son, maybe they are really politically corrupt and you're sold out to another. I'm not saying that you are.
But they already did that to Trump.
But I'm saying that if the same things were happening with Trump's kids, right? Remember all the complaining about them and their proximity to power. If anything like this was out there, you don't think they would have found it by now?
Well, here's the thing, too.
They wouldn't have come up with a reason to raid him to find out about all of his kids' dealings?
They said that Russia probably had a P-tape on him. Russia had a P-tape on Trump. That's why he was their puppet. Like, there's literally Hunter Biden's dick with a fucking hooker and cocaine on his computer that he was emailing the Russians on. There's your P-tape right there, but we've already released it. And the whole side that was trying to burn somebody for that one president to go is going, no, it's fine. It's fine. He's on our team. It's fine.
Right. But David, don't you know that that's Hunter? That's not Joe.
Oh.
I mean, even if it is tied to Joe's corruption, it's not really that bad, because that's a firefly to Trump defrauding a few people out of an education. But it's super unfair, David.
But
that's why we have to do what we have to do.
They definitely didn't try to burn the entire family with the misgivings of some of them against the Trump family. Again, we're not wearing MAGA hats. We're not super Trumpers. We're just saying this shit doesn't add up.
Now, you may have heard it there at the end of the last clip. But the last couple words he said was it was unfair. So he understands that where he's gotten so far, all the way from it's Hunter, it's not Joe, to Fireflies and Sons.
I'm going to get him back on my track.
He now realizes that this does not convince what he considers a small subset of the population of society. The really pro-Trump people, says they're not as numerous as they think they are. He says that he understands that he probably didn't convince that group that it's not unfair. So here's what Sam has to say next.
That doesn't answer the people who say it's still completely unfair to not have looked at the laptop in a timely way and to have shut down the New York Post's Twitter account. Like that's just a conspiracy. That's a left-wing conspiracy to deny the presidency to Donald Trump. Absolutely, it was. Absolutely. Right. But I think it was warranted. Right. And again, it's a coin toss as to whether or not
Sam, I'm sorry.
That particular piece.
I'm really sorry. I was the one that said we should move on, but you've just said something I really struggle with there, which is
the kids in the basement.
No, fuck the kids in the basement. I'm interested in democracy.
I didn't put this down on the list to talk about, but I just want to not let that go without passing. The kids in the basements, that's what bothered you? No, fuck the kids in the basement.
Remember when they made fun of the people that broke into the pizza place thinking that they were child the child syndicate raping.
The Q people broke in there. Yes.
What idiots! They thought there was a child raping program. What fucking morons!
What I'm saying, guys, if you think that there are people like that out in society, you might not want to give them ammo by acting like that. I mean, that's just a little bit of PR advice for you from just two know-nothing podcasters with no media training whatsoever.
Maybe don't make fun of dead bodies of children. Just an idea.
Maybe that's a bit of a soft subject with some people for some very legitimate reasons. But anyway, moving on to, this insight that he goes from where he's saying, basically, Sam, you're suggesting that in order to save democracy, we have to castrate democracy.
Right.
So it seems like it's almost like achieving peace through war.
It's like you've built this whole thing up. Put the cherry on it, Sam. Go.
You're saying you are content with a left-wing conspiracy to prevent somebody being democratically re-elected as president.
Well, no, I'm content. Well, but the thing is, it's just not left-wing, right? So Liz Cheney is not left-wing. Right, Liz Cheney is doing everything in her power
to prevent somebody being democratically elected.
But there's nothing conspiracy. It's not. It was a conspiracy out in the open. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Okay, so a couple things packed in there. He's saying that first of all, he's interpreted as saying you're willing to sacrifice democracy by not using democracy to save democracy. That's a tough logical Gordian knot to untangle. So of course he immediately starts backtracking. They're like, well, it's not really a conspiracy. Well, it's not a left-wing conspiracy because Liz Cheney's involved.
Oh,
his argument to say that kind of conspiracy is less worse than a purely left-wing conspiracy is a complete and utter naivety or obliviousness to the actual acting power in the United States federal government. It's not left or right, it's regime. We call it out on this podcast all the time. So you are saying that a purely left-wing one would be worse, or at least it's a little less bad, if I say, no, it's not that kind of conspiracy. It's one where both the left and the right agree to keep the current regime in power and nobody question it from any direction. That's the conspiracy you're more comfortable with than one on just partisan political left-wing grounds.
Well, all I'm going to say is you just
priorities, mate.
You just literally said it's okay if we cheat because we're right. But we have one of their side on our side, which validates our cheating. So they were cool with it. So it was cool that we did it. Like, if you want to talk about the biggest threat to our democracy, that mentality is the biggest threat to our democracy. Not, well, we were doing the right thing. Like, how do you know what the right thing is? You can see the future? Interesting. Because none of us can. And you knew that you had to do this one thing. You had to go back in time to 1920, whatever the fuck, that Hitler was born and killed that one baby. You knew that. That's my point, is that the moral platitudes gives them reason to act outside of the law, to act outside of what is right and just, because they said they're doing it for the right reasons. Well, so did Hitler, to go Manichaeanism on it. That's what we always fight about here, and he's being completely, how would you say that in a verb? Manichaeanistic?
Yeah.
Manichaeanistic. Like, he's saying that yes, we cheated, but we got the right result, which is the right result for his eyes, not the rest of the country. Always remember that. And that is what is going to drive the wedge between this country and break it up, not Donald Trump. Never fall for that.
Well, David gets full credit for jumping the shark twice on that one.
Fuck, did I?
In terms of pointing out about the whole hypocrisy on democracy going on, as well as, I forget what the other one was, but we'll pull it out as we go through these last 41 seconds of what Harris had to say.
It was a conspiracy out in the open. But it doesn't matter if it was. It doesn't matter what part's conspiracy, what part's out in the open. I mean, I think it's like if people get together and talk about what should we do about this phenomenon. If it's like if there was an asteroid hurtling toward Earth, and we got in a room together with all of our friends and had a conversation about what we could do to deflect its course, right? Is that a conspiracy? Like some of that conversation would be in public, some of it would be in private. We have a massive problem. We have an existential threat, right? Politically speaking, I consider Trump an existential threat to our democracy.
I do. That's the key phrase. I view him as.
Okay. So Mr. Harris is worried about, quote, existential threats to democracy. And he goes on this long, winding discussion about whether he actually knows. He's debating with himself in real time about whether or not he knows what the definition of a conspiracy is. A conspiracy is an act by two or more people to engage in illicit activity or to act in concert, right? Dave and I say, David, after this episode, we're going to go to the bar. You want to go to the bar? Yeah, I want to go to the bar.
We go to the bar.
We conspire to go to the bar. We had an agreement to go to the bar. Whether it's in private or in public, we conspired. Now, that
feels fun. Can we conspire to do more things?
Yes. I promise
you guys should too.
David's
conspire to listen to this podcast more often.
So he has this long winding, what does conspire actually mean in my brain? Is it always illegal? Is it not? I don't know, whatever. I need to move on. That doesn't seem to be sinking in. So you know what? I'm going to up the ante. What did David say just last week? He talked about they always have to up the ante, right? Because it's the boy who cried wolf. They say this thing you were terrified of didn't actually come to fruition. Well, this next thing is going to be worse. And they're always up in the ante. So in real time, Harris goes from conspire, what's the definition of the word is, and winds up with, whether it's conspired or not, there's an asteroid coming to Earth.
We're talking named Donald fucking Trump.
We are talking, multi-level, species-wide, extinction-level event. If this guy gets into power, think about the severity of that.
Could you imagine the egg on our face if there was an asteroid with a big golden Trump thing heading to our planet right now? And Sam knew?
The conclusion he obviously wants you to reach is whether you come to the conclusion it's a good type of conspire or a bad type of conspire.
You're still conspiring.
It was justified because the threat was so large. And remember what he said a couple points ago. The size of the threat was the known criminal activity of Trump as demonstrated through Trump University.
He might have not paid taxes appropriately.
And he might have scammed some people out of education.
He might have got a couple of documents out of the White House.
That's worse than whether or not pro-democracy people conspired, whether out in the open or whether privately, but they conspired to stop a threat like somebody who orchestrated Trump University and not somebody who, if we go down the rabbit hole, is completely sold out to China, Ukraine, Russia, and
don't pay attention
son is a multiple-time
Dane.
felon, yada, yada, yada.
It distracts you from the asteroid of Trump.
All I have to say to Mr. Harris is check your priorities, bro. You're outraged. What you people choose to be outraged over tells us everything we need to know about you.
And then more to the point, what are you really outraged about? What did he do that was so egregious? Did he lie to the American people? Did he get us into a war that cost us $2 trillion? Did he make up a story that said a foe that cannot be named or tagged down has nuclear capabilities? Did he say any of these things?
Was he the person who created the structurally racist student loan system who now says he's fixing it? Or maybe perhaps he's just a really, really bad person with no moral character. And even if his policies aren't the worst thing in the world, he's just a terrible, terrible person, and he must be stopped at all costs.
Or
that is TDS, and that's the other part that David jumped the shark on, is linking TDS with Manichaeanism. That's exactly what it is. If you listen to, in that garbled line of logic, the one theme running through all of Sam Harris's analysis, what his North Star that he kept coming back to despite contradicting himself and changing and constantly making false lops of logic. Leaps of logic. Leaps of logic.
Leaps of logic. Okay. He had a lapse of logic or a leap of
I shouldn't
logic,
have
right.
struggled that hard with that.
It's okay.
His North Star is that in a very Manichaeist way, anything that agrees with Trump must be evil, and anything that disagrees with Trump must be holy. No matter what they did, Biden's, we have to agree with them because that other side is so evil. I can't concede the tiniest thing, both against them or against my guy, because I'm subtly admitting that the light side, my side, is wrong. It's corruptible. I can't believe that. It's black and it's white, no gray.
That was carrying the nuclear football that could start a nuclear holocaust with the world. Fast forward 2 years after his presidency, Nancy Pelosi flies a fucking plane against our biggest rivals, consent, into a place that is the fulcrum of our consternation with that particular country. If that's not flying in the face of nuclear holocaust, I don't know what is. What did I think the closest thing that he ever did was call North Korea Rocket Man? I think that was as close as he got, was it not? To piss off people. So again, it's actions and it's words. But some side wants to see some actions as virulently violent, even though there was no violence whatsoever. And some people want to see it as just normal business practices while they're sending more of our children off to die and kill other children in other countries. It's part of business, you know? Just the government working how the government should.
And now consider that throughout that interview, because it's an hour and a half long interview, and if you have time, please watch it in its entirety. So you can get all of Sam Harris and all of his context. We feel like the clip we played enough uncut, minus our interjections to point specific things out. But you can go to our website, WNDpodcast.com/109, show notes page, or the description under the video here. Click on that link and watch from the time that we allot to you the exact unedited clip that we talked about with Harris. But in there, Harris talks about earlier in the interview about how Liz Cheney, despite the fact that old Sam Harris would hate everything about her and she's everything that's wrong with right-wing Christian conservative politicians, and the biggest threat to American security is probably them instituting a religious theocracy. That's what he thought about Liz Cheney pre-Trump.
Oh, how he's grown.
And in very Manichaean way, because she has now jumped to his side, the light side, she's
great.
Converted.
Oh my God,
right?
She saw the light. She's going to heaven with us. She's going to the next realm.
He says that he literally calls Liz Cheney a hero.
Oh my fucking, what does he really?
He says Liz Cheney is a total hero.
The fuck out of here. Go ahead. Play it. I want to hear it. I want to hear it out of his mouth.
I didn't mark that part of the video. Okay, you didn't cue it up? Well, then what I'm saying
you'll have to.
Yeah, they'll have to. That's why they got to go to the description or the website to get that one. But they can watch the whole Sam Harris video in context.
I believe.
Is after lionizing Liz Cheney, David brought up the Dick Cheney TV ad against Trump in favor of his daughter. So let's hear what former Vice President Cheney had to say.
In our nation's 246-year history, there has never been an individual who is a greater threat to our republic than Donald Trump. He tried to steal the last election using lies and violence to keep himself in power after the voters had rejected him. He is a coward. A real man wouldn't lie to his supporters. He lost his election, and he lost big. I know it, he knows it, and deep down, I think most Republicans know it.
That has no semblance upon his vice presidency whatsoever, does it, Dane?
I don't think so. I always remember Dick Cheney as like the the most, or the wisest and most
Upright.
judicious statesman in the Bush administration.
He definitely didn't get into the office under auspicious claims of voter fraud down in Florida, and there definitely wasn't a riot. The Brooks and Dunn riot. I don't remember what it was called.
Listen, David, I don't know the answer to you about the Florida thing, but what I will tell you is this: based on the FBI's recent terrorist watch list, the fact that we fit into like 6 categories.
I mean, with my Beavis
I would say
that has nothing to do.
I
with
would
anything.
say our lack of presence in Florida in the year 2000 is evidence that it was legal and above board and not stolen.
Clearly.
Because if we were here, we're the greatest threat to American
we
democracy
are.
by existing.
We would have infiltrated and subjugated.
So
we would have spread our
the
seed.
fact that we were not here in 2000 is suggestive that election was above board because, the greatest threat wasn't
and
here
it's
yet.
a good thing he never lied to his party, and let alone the country. And it's a good thing that the business that he worked for didn't make massive amount of gains from the multitude of people that Americans and non-Americans that he killed with those lies. It's a good thing that he's standing on the moral high ground. It's a great thing that Dick Cheney, the guy that there was jokes about him being Darth fucking Vader while he was in office, is the moral platitude that the fucking Democrats are globbing onto right now. Interesting. Time heals all wounds, apparently. Jesus Christ, what have you become? What has the Democratic Party become? Honestly, if you are willing to suck up to that was a clip from CNN to give them a fucking heartless shout out for the second time on this podcast.
In remembrance
by the way,
of Brian Stelter.
Seltzer.
Seltzer.
The fizzy water, Brian Fizzy Water. We are shouting out CNN for the second time tonight to say, what the fuck are you doing?
Dude, we just tripled their viewership.
And they only paid $10,000 for that. Anyway, all I'm saying is look at thine own ass first. I think it was Corinthians 21:73. If you're making friends with the guy that literally lied to get us into a 20-year war that cost us $2 trillion and a lot of American lives and a hell of a lot more of lives across the seas, I don't know what to tell you. If you're ready to get in league with literally as close as the human embodiment of Darth Vader or the devil or whatever is the most horrific thing that is willing to sell people's lives for personal profit and the profit of the business that they reflect, I'm sorry. You have lost all moral platitudes of being on the right side that you will ever have, ever. Stop it. That's what's dividing this country. We can't have a conversation if you won't at least come to the table. And that's not coming to the table. That's making a deal with the devil. Literally.
And before we finish and sign off on episode 109, David and I talked and we're like, listen, if we have time for this, we'll talk about this at the very tail end of it. We don't have time for it, but
we'll mention it.
Would we not be WMD Podcast if we didn't give everything we planned to give you? And if you want to find more, to come find us over at WMDpodcast.com/.
We're very giving lovers.
Just a tab or two over from there is the support our work page where you can sign up to get in that Facebook group. Or you can get that bonus episode that we're going to record right after this one.
Why don't you just spit on me first?
So anyway, the very brief article discussion is from Politico. And I'm going to read the title and the subtitle, and then I'm going to give you a fair synopsis of it, and then you're going to go read it for yourself and see if you come to a different conclusion. Title is Trump White House exerted pressure on FDA for COVID-19 emergency use authorizations, House report finds. Okay, it's obscure. Which FDA emergency use authorization? Subtitle. The report by House Democrats examining the pandemic says Trump officials sought vaccine approvals to sway voters before the 2020 election. So of all of these EUAs that Trump rushed through, one that they take issue with is that Trump officials trying to rush through vaccine approval before the 2020 election, because you understand, he was doing it for political purposes so that he would get reelected.
Oh my God.
He did it cynically, not in the interest of public health.
Is Fauci mentioned anywhere in there?
In the article, yes.
Okay.
At one point, yes.
Okay.
About how Trump tried to run Fauci out because Fauci stood in the way of Trump rushing the stuff through the FDA.
Oh, despite the fact that he said we need to get this in every arm that we possibly can ever as all. I, Anthony Fauci, am science. To question Anthony Fauci is to question science. That sounds kind of Trumpian, doesn't it?
I mean, listen.
Self-aggrandizing?
Once the vaccines got approved, he was all cheerleader at that point.
And you know what? It's a good thing the Biden's campaign got in there and stopped and said, hey, you guys, if you want to get the shot, go get the shot. We're going to push you. We're going to force you to do it. We're definitely not going to force pilots to go get it. We're definitely not going to force young children to get it, to go back into school. We're definitely not going to do any of the things that we're definitely doing right now.
And here's what I want to say about, okay, I'm still talking in the third person in there. And
don't pull a Fauci.
What they're trying to argue. What they're trying to say is, listen, even if that's the case, even if Trump did push it, we had to force it on people at the time because it's the best we had. Now remember that was the argument they had at the time. They're like, listen, we know you think it's rushed, but listen, we promise it went through all the proper safety channels. It went through less safety channels than full approval would take. It got EUA status, so it didn't have to go through all the approvals. But listen, we slowed it down to just the right amount of speed. Trump wanted to go faster than us, and that's bad. Why is it bad? We don't really know, because we really trust this thing, and it's great. And everybody should have it jabbed in their arm, or they should be turned into second-class citizens and driven out of society.
The same thing that they're arguing about right now, they say you need 5 shots of it now.
Yeah.
They're saying you need 5 shots of the thing that he was trying to push through too fast.
I guess Trump just got lucky, right? He tried to push it through too fast, and they were the correct ones for delaying him, or they did just the right amount to know when they decided that it was good or maybe politically feasible, like, after the 2020 election, to basically grant that emergency youth authorization.
Because Trump needed to shut down this country. He wanted to shut down this country,
Is that not exactly what Sam was saying?
He wanted to shut down this country.
He was an existential threat.
2 weeks, if not more, take your time. Shut this country down. Oh, wait. He did want to shut the country down. The democratically owned House and Senate did. He didn't want to force people to take a shot to go back to work. The House did. That was democratically owned. He didn't want to pay bailouts to the states that extended the stay-at-home orders that subsequently put their states into financial despair.
And that was what? Punishing his political opponents? Was that the accusation?
That was the accusation from the left, was that he was punishing the states that didn't vote for him. I don't know if you need a memory longer than a goldfish, but you have to at least remember 2 years ago. Please start being better. Like, don't buy the rhetoric. Don't buy all this shit. If we haven't presented enough evidence tonight to say that there is definitely something going on here, and it's not going right for us, we're the guinea pigs in the fucking lab at this point. And they gave, not to forget, they also gave Pfizer, a company that's been paying out fucking wrongful harm claims for the last 20 years to tunes of billions upon billions, if not trillions. They just made the biggest profit they've ever made over this time period.
So in Sam Harris's Manichaeist brain, he thinks that having Trump anywhere near the presidency is so much greater of an existential threat to democracy than literally doing the most undemocratic thing you can possibly do, which the questioner asked him, are you willing to
Sacrifice
allow a fair democratic election to take place by censoring information like this? And Sam stumbles for quite a long time trying to explain that, well, yeah, Trump is really that bad, but Biden being sold out and all that kind of stuff isn't that bad.
Because it says D next to it.
Because Liz Cheney's involved, that for not caring about just the left wing, he basically says, I don't care about the regime that we always point out on this podcast, the actual people that control power, that regardless of Democrat or Republican administration for decades, all you got was more war. It's always funneled more fire, more coal onto the machine of the war machine. It's always give more corporate bailouts and subsidies to the politically connected, regardless of Republican or Democrat, legislature or executive. It always goes in the same direction. That's the power, the entrenched bureaucracy that thrives off of that grift. That's what's in power. And Sam Harris is more comfortable with that entity, whatever you want to call it, because it's bipartisan left and right, but that is living on the American taxpayer like a parasite. That entity conspiring is not as bad as if it would have just been a left-wing one. If that isn't the most TDS, Manichaeist outview or look on the world, a total cut your nose off to spite your face response to Donald Trump, I don't know. I don't know what else to give you.
Democratic. I'd say that's a pretty big threat to the democracy that we live in right now.
Yeah.
But Dane, with that summation of this whole fucking episode, where can these beloved viewers and listeners find it?
They can find this episode at wmdpodcast.com/109. They can find it on any podcast app. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction, look for 109. They can also get it on the video channels, YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey. Just search Weapons of Meme Destruction. And again, also look for 109. And do I really have to check the boxes that meticulously?
Yes, you do. And more important,
listen, I am capable of self-reflection, if nothing else.
Upon reflection of
I think
self,
by the second time, they're like, yeah, bro, 109,
we got it. We got it. You've only said it 5 times in this episode.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, we apologize, or who knows? If you love this shit, you're welcome.
Comment,
for the
view
extra
us,
link.
tell us we suck, do all the things, just engage with us. We want to make this better for you. We want you to make this better for us. Engage with us, let us know, support us, tell your friends, do whatever the hell you want to do. Subscribe, let us know, tick the little box to notifications, because God knows what the algorithm is doing.
And on the bonus episode that David and I are going to get ready for right now to talk about the Andrew Tate cancellation vis-a-vis what was the other one?
Oh, for fuck's sake, Dane.
David, what was it? Did we not?
Adam Wright, or what was his name? The little fucking dickhead that was the Democratic sus boy?
Dan Price?
Dan Price, there we go.
Dan Price. The Andrew Tate cancellation versus the Dan Price recent cancellation. And, some lessons to take away from it. And you won't get just access to that bonus episode.
But all the other episodes.
You get to all the ones we've previously recorded, even predating your membership.
You'll get to know us a little bit better.
Exactly. So as we get ready for that, we would like David to sign you out and see you later at 110.
Stay safe. And guys, more importantly than anything else, stay free.